Welcome to episode 21 of Norse Myths, Legends, and Folktales. My name is MyLinda Butterworth, and today we learn about what happens when Thor, Loki, Thialfie, and Roskva meet the giant Skrymir on their journey in part 2 of Thor's journey to Utgard. So Loki and Thialfie and his sister Roskva felt their way into the pitch-dark recesses of the side room, and Thor sat down in the doorway. He gripped the handle of his hammer and vowed to guard them against all comers. Even now, the travelers did not enjoy unbroken sleep. They were woken several times by a muffled roaring and lay awake for most of the night in a state of dread. As soon as it began to get light, Thor cautiously made his way out of the hall. At once, he saw a man lying full length in the glade, and he was by no means a dwarf. He was asleep, and in his sleep, he suddenly snored. Then he began to snore, and Thor understood the nature of the noise that he and his companions had heard during the night. He looked at the giant grimly and buckled on the belt given to him by the giantess Grid. He felt his strength grow and surge like a spring tide within him. At this moment the giant woke, and seeing Thor standing almost over him, sprang to his feet. He was as tall as the pine trees around them, and Thor was so taken aback by his height that he did not hurl Mjolnir at him, but asked astonished, "Who on earth are you?" "Skrymir," boomed the giant. "Big bloke." "No one is going to quarrel with that," muttered Thor. "I don't have to ask who you are," Skrymir, eyeing Loki, Thialfie, and Roskva, who were now crept out of their sleeping quarters. "I know you're Thor. Have you moved my glove?" Skrymir bent down and picked it up, the glove that Thor and the others had seen as a vast hall. Thor now saw that what they had taken for the main hall was the cavity of Skrymir's hand and 4 fingers, and that the side room was the opening for his thumb. "What would you say to my company today?" said Skrymir. "We'd welcome it," Thor said. "We're on our way to Utgard." "Eat and drink with me first," said Skrymir. Thor and his companions were far from unhappy about that, for their own knapsack was now almost empty. When they had eaten as much as they wanted, Skrymir said, "Let's pool our provisions." "Very well," said Thor. So Skrymir simply dropped their knapsack into his own larger bag, tied it up, slung it over his back. Then he set off through the forest, taking huge strides, so that Thor, Loki, and Roskva were soon left behind. Even Thialfie, as fleet of foot as any man in Midgard, was hard put to keep up with him. The travelers, however, could always tell which way to go by stopping and listening to the sound of Skrymir crashing through the forest ahead of them. In the evening, they caught up with the giant at the very edge of the forest. He was sitting under a large oak. "There are no buildings here," he said, "but these oaks will give us shelter for the night. I'm tired after such a trek, and all I want to do is sleep." Thor looked pained, and Loki ravenous. Thialfie and Roskva thought of their father's farm and their mother's cauldron. "A lack of meat seems little hardship now," said Roskva forlornly. "But you can take my bag," said Skrymir. "Prepare yourself some supper." Then he lay down and rolled over, and within a minute he was asleep. The oak trees shook at his snoring, and the birds perched in its branches took themselves off for a better place. Thor grasped the bag of the provisions. "You can make the fire," he told the others, "and I'll undo it." But that is just what he could not do. The straps keeping the travelers from their supper were as adamant as the rope lading that bound the wolf and rear, and Thor was unable to work a single one loose. His companions each took a turn, and the prospects of having any supper that evening slowly receded. Thor grew more and more frustrated. His beard bristled at the thought that Skrymir had not meant them to be able to open the bag. Then he lost his patience altogether. He gripped Mjolnir with both hands and took a couple of steps forward so that he stood right over Skrymir. Then he brought the hammer down on the giant's forehead. Skrymir sat up. "What was that? Did a leaf fall on my head?" He looked around. "And you? Have you had your supper and are you ready to sleep?" "As a matter of fact," said Thor hurriedly, "we were just about to turn in." The travelers slowly made their way to the shelter of a second massive oak tree standing nearby. They lay down there, but now that Thor's hammer had failed them for the first time since it was forged by Brock and Eitri, they were all too anxious as well as too hungry to be able to sleep. At midnight, Skrymir was snoring again. The trees nearby shuddered and the ground shook under their bodies. Thor decided he had heard enough. Without a word, he got up and quietly made his way over to Skrymir. Then he raised Mjolnir quickly and fiercely and slammed it down on the middle of the giant's crown. He could feel that the head of the hammer had sunk well into Skrymir's brains. Skrymir sat up. "Now what was that?" he said. "Did an acorn fall on my head?" He looked around. "And you, Thor, what are you doing over there?" "Like you," Thor said hastily. "I've just woken up, but it's the middle of the night, and we should both go back to sleep." As he talked, Thor backed away and lay down again beside his companions under the second oak. His brow beetled, and he vowed to himself that when he got the chance to hit Skrymir again, the giant would see stars and plunge to the depth of Niflheim. He lay very still, waiting for Skrymir to go back to sleep. Shortly before daybreak, Thor was sure his victim was fast asleep. His ears could scarcely withstand the racket of his snoring. Once more he got up and quietly made his way over to Skrymir. He raised Mjolnir and with all his immense might crashed it into the giant's upturned temple. He buried the whole hammerhead into Skrymir's brains. It sank in up to the handle. Skrymir sat up and rubbed his cheek. "Are there birds up there in that tree?" he said. "Just as I was waking, I thought some droppings fell onto me." He looked around. "And you, Thor, are you well and truly awake?" Thor was dumbstruck. "It's time your companions stirred themselves. Tell them to get up and dress. It's not far from here to the stronghold of Utgard." Skrymir narrowed his eyes. "I've heard your whisperings to each other that I'm no dwarf, but wait until you get to Utgard. You'll see men there much bigger than I am." Whether he was aware of it or not, Thor was slowly shaking his head. Loki and Thialfie and Roskva stirred under their oak and listened to the giant. "And let me give you a bit of advice," said Skrymir. "Keep your pride for your own kind. Keep your mouths shut. Utgard's Loki men won't stand for bragging from a small fry like you." Thor seethed at such an insult, but there was nothing whatsoever he could do about it. He stood and listened. "Your other course of action," said Skrymir, "would be to head straight home, and in my view that would be the right one. But if you insist on going, walk east from here." Skrymir pointed out the way. "As for me, I have to head north for those distant mountains." Then threw it over his back. Without a friendly word, without even a nod, he stumped away along the hem of the wood. Thor and his companions watched him go. "I don't imagine we'll miss him much," said Loki, "or long to see him again." And here is where I end my tale for today. But I'll be back with more tales. Many, more tales. Until then, my friends, enjoy the journey.